Thanks for being here. We are already 5 minutes late, so I'm not going to wait for more people, even if I hope that more people will be coming for this pretty important session. So the name of the session is Business Model to Scale Smart Farming for Sustainable Agri-Food System. A lot of words, but it's just a very important aspect. You know, whatever we do, whatever innovation we have, if at the end there is no business model, if there is no profitable way to bring this innovation to the farmers, from the farmers to the processor, to the consumers, this is just smart people, but staying in a small circle and without benefits for the world. So I think, you know, being able to identify the problems, bringing solution, but as we are going to see during the afternoon, how we can make sure we can scale up this and we can get higher rate of adoption, higher rate of delivery is essential. Because farmers are smart. You know, we have a conference on smart farming. First, I don't think that anyone likes to be called non-smart. But the question is, what are the options we give them? What are the choices we give them? How these choices are aligned with incentives. And what is true for farmers is also true. I mean, Corina, you can come here. You are welcome. I don't want to put pressure on you. We just started, okay? Corina Ox, or director for the Agri-Food System and Food Safety Division, that will play an important role during the session. And yes, so as I was saying, you know, most people are smart. Sometimes they don't have the option to play their smart card. And that's where the question of incentive is important. The question of financing is going to be important. And today we are maybe not speak too much on finance. We don't also have representatives of banks and insurance, but the two are strongly interlinked. And when you want to bring finance, you want to make sure that your money is going to bring profits. Even if you are a development bank, you still expect some rate of return. And why I'm saying this is because on one hand, you need the right technology. You will also need the right system of information to showcase to investors that it makes sense to put the money in this technology, in this solution, or that the farmers that adopt it are going to be more resilient, more profitable. Because once again, if you don't have the flow of money, the flow of ideas is not going to reach to people. So during this afternoon, at least part of the afternoon, we are going also to see how the type of innovation we are talking about, the type of solution we are going to provide to basically do better what we do today. And you know, at FAO, we have a strategic framework. We want to get better production, and that starts on the farm. We want to get better environment. We want also to get better nutrition, because, I mean, if we produce food, farmers produce different things. But what is about producing food is to get good food to people, okay? So producing is one part, but it's not the goal. We don't produce for the sake of producing. We are producing for the sake of providing food to people at the end. And of course, we want to deliver better life. So that the social dimension, that to make sure that all the people involved in the agri-food system have a better livelihood. And today we are not performing so well on this different dimension. If you follow our publication, you will know that we have more than 650 million people in chronic hunger, more than 2 billion people in food insecurity, nearly 3 billion people that cannot afford a healthy diet. And at the same time, we are increasing the pressure on all our natural resources to a point that it's not clear how much we will be able to produce in 25 years from now. What type of quality food we will be able to produce. And even if people want to be farmer in 25 years. So all the things we talk about making the sector more attractive, finding new solutions, is to solve this. Making sure that environmentally we still have ecosystem that can provide the support we need to produce food, to produce fish, and so on, to make sure that people want to remain farmers. I mean, at the global level, I tend to say that farmers become an endangered species, okay? And in some country, how many farmers we will have in 25 years is a very important question. And of course, we can do automation, we can do mechanization, but not always to replace farmers, but to make their job more interesting and less painful. To make sure that we still have humans part of the system. Don't believe that AI is going to solve everything. And finally, yes, we want to reduce the inequalities. So we are going to move now to the first element of the equation. I will say the economic. You know, sustainability with 3 dimensions: economic, social, environmental. Let's start about the economics. I'm an economist, so I care about this. I mean, also as farmers will say, we don't become green if we are in the red, okay? We all work to gain money, and farmers also. So how we can make the economic system more efficient and provide incentive and the solution? I'm going to look at John Trask, that is the CEO of the Dimitra corporation, that if you look at his bio, you will see he has not always worked in the agri-food system. And I think it's important also to think beyond, you know, when to bring better ideas, to understand what are the specificities of our system and what is actually problems that have been solved in the automotive industry, in the chemical industry already 20 years ago. So how we can bring the good ideas and the good solution. And John, if you allow me to call you John, I give you now the control of the situation. And we are going to start with pineapple.
Thanks, David. Thank you. Thanks for everybody having me here. So again, David said I'm John Trask. I'm the head of Dimitra. We're a corporation that works around the world. We're working in almost 40 countries of the world, typically in agriculture and the food industry. And I look at the model, particularly in the software industry where I come from, and say the model is broken. Today, we use software to solve challenges and solve problems for farming. And typically, we produce one tool, we try to solve a problem, and within that problem, we have problems with trade-offs. And so we may try to deal with a fertilizer problem to help a farmer grow more crops. But the trade-off may change the style of farming, and they may make decisions that are not environmentally friendly, that are not creating the best economic conditions or not the best for the community. One of the things we do at Dimitra is we really try to create balance between 3 pillars. And so you look at our approach. We use data and we try to figure out with data how we build out different tool sets. We spent years building out our agri-tech and supply chain tool set, using satellite, using sensors, using data analytics and AI, and this is going too fast. And essentially, then we take our second pillar, which really is around sustainability, ESG, carbon, and then our third pillar is really tying that all together with finance. And there's no sound to this video. You see clips from our projects around the world. We run projects around the world. We have 7 million farmers that use our application in the world. And they all have different problems that they're trying to solve. Over here, we have our head of sales, Andreas, and our head of ESG, Carlotta. They really are out trying to solve individual challenges, but it all fits within tying these 3 pillars together. When we work on a project, we look at how do we bring finance and investment to the project, not just how do we provide a tool to the farmer. how do we make sure that they're going to get paid for the product that they're producing, that they're getting the best return for the product that they're producing, and that the trade-offs, at least they're aware of the trade-offs so that they're not making environmental decisions that may be poor for the environment but good for their productivity, and they understand those differences. So one of our platforms we built, FAO uses it on a project in Suriname. I'm going to play this. This one has sound.
Welcome to the future of farming in the indigenous and tribal people community of Suriname, where innovation meets tradition. Through the Agri-Food Systems Transformation Accelerator Project, with the support of Dimitra, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations has developed the Connected Farmer Platform, a digital solution revolutionizing how remote farmers in the Amazon grow and sell pineapples. Introducing FAO Farm Connected, a cutting-edge platform designed to enhance pineapple farming by integrating technology with traditional practices.
It is a real pleasure and honor to be here with you. In your beautiful country, agricultural development is the most effective mechanism to change lives, to bring people from poverty to well-being. Your problems are our problems, so we need to empower you.
It's a 6-minute video produced by FAO on the project that we're running in Suriname. It's a great, great project, and you can get more information on that. We're very proud to be a part of that project. And we just clipped it because we only have a short period of time to talk. This is something that we built and we made modifications. Some of the great things about the tool are that a farmer gets up and on their phone, they get a notification. There's a 155-step process on how to be a successful pineapple farmer. They get a notification in the morning that says, this week, your pineapple is susceptible to butterfly larvae, and you should go out and look for that because there's a high chance that it's going to destroy your pineapple. And this notification system helps them be better at what they do. The system uses satellite, it uses different tools, notifications, it uses AI, and it's all built within the system. So we use this system around the world. We have farmers all over the world that use this system. It's Dimitra Connected Farmer. FAO has a modified version of that with some specific features that the FAO team wanted added to the system, and we're happy to do that. One of the things we're doing with our platform, and we think the world is evolving, we're evolving that platform into an open source model. Anybody in the world can use it. We're making it available to the world this fall. And we have millions of people on our platform today, but we want tens of millions of people using the platform. We have 60-some crops that are in the platform. A lot of it has been built around 2 types of farming, agroforestry and row crops. We don't do anything with livestock or anything in the platform. It is completely crop-based. But please take a look. Every FAO country that wants it will be able to use it, and there's no cost for you to use it. You can host it, you can deal with all your own data privacy concerns. It can all sit on your servers. We also offer a hosted model if you want it hosted in different areas. And then we also white label it. So we have nations, and you'll see some countries that use it. And here's some clips from a carbon program. We work with around the world, and one of the things we try to do is we align real ESG projects, real carbon projects with farming communities. In Mexico, we're working in Sierra Leone. It's an indigenous society in Nayarit on the West Coast. This year will be their first carbon credits on the program, and every farming family, depending on how much effort they put in, will earn between an extra $800 and $2,500 US in income from the carbon credit on top of their farming income. And so again, this is part of the 3-pillar approach. We say, we look at this, we want to help them be better farmers, We want them to help make better environmental decisions. And then we want to bring them financing. And we will bring them financing through the carbon program and through working with other investors in order to bring more investment to them so that we can enhance their current livelihood. It's a great program. There's some other ones going on in the background. I see Brazil. This is a video that's online just playing to show you clips. We have 4 major projects across 10 million hectares right now. Brazil, Peru, Indonesia, and Mexico. We have 10 more countries that we're working on projects in. Those projects have not been kicked off yet. But we see that going towards around 25 million hectares within a year or two, and all with farming communities. In all of that, we fund it all. We're not looking for funding. We are looking to sell the carbon credits, and we're looking to create an environment where the farmer enhances the environment and earns carbon credits for that, earns a premium for their products through ESG reporting, earns a premium for their products for being deforestation-free, all of these different reasons. So we have a product called Dimitra ESG Compass. That is the national fruit platform for Brazil for ESG. 80% of the Brazilian exports are run through a group called Abrafrutas. Abrafrutas uses the Dimitra ESG Compass platform designed by Carlotta and built by our team. This is just some images of the program. It's a great program we get sponsorship out of the Brazilian government at the state level. There's many Brazilian organizations that are involved. And essentially, they have an ESG seal. So they look at different farms, they look at the farming businesses and what they're doing for environmental compliance, what they're looking in social and governance. And they go through, and Abrafrutas will award a seal to them that they can put on their website, that they can use from a marketing perspective. It helps them comply with new legislation that's coming out in Europe. It helps them comply when they're selling their products to major Fortune 500 or major corporations that need to report ESG compliance on their financials. So it's a great program. If you want to learn more, again, ESG Compass or Abrafrutas. We have a national compliance program. So the country of Indonesia has an application that they use. It's ID Connect, Indonesia Connect. It is a platform that they manage a lot of their export compliance with. It's a platform that's a modified version of Dimitra. Again, on that platform, they run coffee, cocoa, palm oil, rubber, other crops, millions and millions of farmers. And we look at different elements of that. We're running a national carbon program with the first area being cacao in Aceh. Aceh had a major devastating flood a couple of years ago, and we will be doing an ARR project there. The actual formal kickoff of that program is, I think, the 3rd week of July. That'll be about 100,000 cacao farmers who lost a great deal of their land during this flooding and mudslide that came down the mountain. The second area that it's going into is Sumatra, and then that will be run across the nation of Indonesia. But they use one system. It's their national compliance system for export. It works with multiple crops. And our partner, which is a government agency there, they run that. They have a department of about 40 people that works in conjunction with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food and other industries in order to help different areas of the country from a compliance perspective. We do asset-based financing, and again, this is where we went out and we raised funds to take farmers who are making $600 to $1,000 or $2,000 a year and change the status quo. and we took their sustenance crops that they were growing and allowed them to continue doing that. And a few years ago, we supplemented avocado. And what that does is it takes them their income of $2,000, and it can increase on the same piece of land their income over about a 5-year window to $25,000 a year. It does create another crop that they can eat. It doesn't greatly impede the sustenance crops that they're growing. And as the avocado trees mature, from a revenue perspective, it really helps them. And the great thing is I get all these texts now from farmers there that we put avocado trees in 3 years ago, and they're starting to get their first crops. And it's really quite exciting because their first crop in year 3 of growing avocado may produce as much income as their entire crop did before. And that is life-changing from a compensation perspective. So, we look at, again, the 3 pillars, ag tech and supply chain, and we do the technology for that. Sustainability and carbon execution. We own a corporation that goes out and physically runs the projects. And then finance and investment. And how do we tie that together every time we work? And so Dimitra Connected Farmer is our base platform. We have about 15 platforms that we've probably built and a bunch of AI we've been running for a number of years with maybe 200 people, developing and building systems and implementing them around the world. And we have a large business development group and many, many countries. So I hope this aligned with the economics. My question is, how do we close the gap between compliance and the premium that should reward it? How do we make a farmer who needs to comply environmentally, who needs to live sustainably, and who needs to participate in a community, and how do we make sure that when they perform an activity, not chopping down a forest, when they participate in a carbon project, that they get rewarded for that? When they work on ESG, how do we get them a premium for their food, and how do we help them market their food so that they're getting that? And so for me, it's tying together those 3 pillars, and that, in my mind, is the key to the economic argument that I was here to defend.
Thanks a lot, John, for this great example from Dimitra. I mean, you have a very clear vision, you have tools, you have action on the ground. I think that also you try to bring with an open platform more countries to that, so it's essential. You talked about the 3 dimension, you talked about the trade-off, and my colleague Corina, I'm sure will follow up on this. But you have seen also how it is integrated, but I think your concluding question is essential. I mean, compliance has cost. A lot of the things we try to do will require more investment, so you can have a more type of capex cost and then you will recover, or in some cases it's going just to increase the cost of doing business. And so it's how we combine these different streams of income, how we can create new income generation. You already show that you can bring things from carbon markets. In some cases, you are going to see also how the data that are generated can be new stream. I mean, data has value. The question is who is capturing it. But I see more and more effort now to make sure that farmers that generate data and are part of a data system can benefit from it. But then the consumers, the buyers is going to do that. For the research we do at FAO, we know that it's not just one person, one actor that is going to pay the full things. Right now, what we see that we are asking the farmer to pay the full cost. And that's what is pretty unfair. And so that's what we need to rebalance. Understand what will come from different actors from the value chain, what will come from financial actors, reducing, your interest rate when you see people doing the right things for them, right thing for their communities. But at the end, also the taxpayer and our policy can create the enabling environment to make sure we deliver on that. Now, yes, economics matters, money matters, but at the end we do all of this also to make sure that people have a better life. So the social dimension is very important because that's the goal. We want better society, better life for these people. And I think here we are going to have a great example presented by Olivier Rao-Bellina from our country office in Madagascar. That's also a good way to deliver to people, is to make sure that we have a good social performance and at the end, a good food in the plate and good nutrition. So please, Oli, join me and take the floor.
Yes, thank you, David, for giving me the floor. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I will contribute to this session by highlighting the importance of nutrition when developing a strong, smart business model. Both generating profit and ensuring that business models are sustainable and do not negatively impact local communities, particularly the most vulnerable ones. I will do so presenting to you the biofortification and the example of a biofortified bean called Col98. For the context, according to the results of a national survey on micronutrient deficiency in Madagascar, the prevalence of anemia represents a great problem at national level, with 42% of children aged 6 to 59 months being anemic, and 30% of women of childbearing age. Anemia is a major public health problem in Madagascar. Anemia has several causes, including iron deficiency, but also other causes such as infections like malaria, inflammation, and other nutritional deficiencies. And malnutrition challenges are not only a social, but also an economic threat. The Nutritional International Cost of Inaction tool is an online, evidence-based tool that illustrates the cost of various malnutrition challenges at global, national, and regional levels. In Madagascar, you can see here that the tool shows the annual cost of anemia amount $117 million, and that overall malnutrition costs account for up to 7.8% of the gross national income. This leads us to say that to increase their impact and cost effectiveness, smart solutions must take into account the cost of inaction when it comes to nutrition. To address this issue in Madagascar, the government has implemented iron supplementation programs through the Ministry of Health. For example, it provides particularly iron and folic acid tablets for pregnant women receiving care at primary health centers. However, this solution is very expensive, and the government cannot afford to cover the vast majority of the population that needs. It therefore depends on whether such projects exist. That is why we decided to turn to agricultural interventions to solve the problem at the root. Action at agricultural level can be more sustainable, less costly, and can reach more targets. Biofortified varieties could be an effective smart agricultural solution, and among these varieties, the Col98 bean. This variety is identified in technical documents as an improved variety rich in iron and zinc. It belongs to the same category of biofortified beans developed by Harvest Plus and Sayat, whose iron content is significantly higher than the conventional varieties. They can meet up to 80% of the daily iron needs of vulnerable populations. So how has FAO promoted the Cal-98 bean? The first way FAO used involves the production of biofortified seeds. The introduction of a Cal-98 variety was supported by Pan-African Bean Research Alliance, and the production of the based seeds was carried out by FOFIFA, it is a national research center. Using this basic seed, the FAO developed the production of R1 type seeds of certified quality under the supervision of the official seed inspection service affiliated with the Ministry of Agriculture. Groups of farmer seed producers received technical guidance and were provided with seeds and small agricultural equipment. They produced the certified quality seeds. After that, seed fairs were organized, with smallholder seed producers participating by bringing their products to sell at the fairs. The voucher system made it possible to distribute a variety of the seeds, including Cal-98, to vulnerable households, and the beneficiary households then cultivated these seeds in their own fields to improve the availability and accessibility of adequate food. FAO support for seed production not only helped to scale up these seeds, but also generated income for the farmer seed multipliers. The second approach FAO used is the Farmer Field School, where we introduced diversified crop production at FFS, incorporating the cultivation of Cal-98 beans. And with that, we have done agricultural training, taking care of the techniques to preserve the environment. It was followed by awareness-raising sessions on how to prepare the various local products grown at the FFS. For the Cal-98 bean, recipes have been developed for children under 5, as well as for pregnant and breastfeeding women. Example, we prepare the skinned beans to make them easier for children to digest and mixed with fish meat. It is a good source of protein. FFS is combined with listening community club, experience sharing between the household members. They speak about different recipes shared in nutrition education and community savings. We could see that this variety has adapted well to the humid conditions of the southeast of Madagascar and the dry conditions on the south. As you can see from this slide, there was an increase of adoption rate of the consumption, decrease of the post-harvest losses, and the households are retaining a large portion for their own consumption instead of selling it. And this one shows us the productivity and the production costs. The revenue generated by this production is significant and has resulted in substantial profits. And here you can see from the results of the baseline and endline surveys from a project that consumption has increased significantly, whether among children or women. So, biofortification seems to have positive results for production, revenue, and consumption. How can Cal-98 build a business model? A smart business model uses biofortification of food like Cal-98 to turn raw bean sales into a value-added food portfolio. In Madagascar, a partnership with the private sector has been launched to manufacture bean flour, mixed with rice or maize, soya, sugar, or honey. After that, with this flour, we made cookies and granola. I brought some samples here. You can take a look at them, and why not try and taste the cookies. The second business model is the professionalization of seed producer groups, so that they will no longer depend on projects, but can develop their own businesses through the selling of the bean called 98. So, biofortified beans like Col 98 are good agricultural solutions to look into because they are smart, profitable, and open doors to many business possibilities. However, that is not the only reason why looking at nutrition in business model development matters, and why we are bringing this example. Nutrition needs to be included in business model development because if not, businesses can have strong negative consequences on local livelihoods, particularly for the most vulnerable groups. It should be noted that currently a large quantity of Col 98 produced in the west part of the country is already destined for export, which constitutes a significant and beneficial source of revenue for the country's economy, but it's making this food less available and affordable at local level. However, business models that are truly smart must consider this risk to adequately feed the population. I would like to emphasize that no truly smart solution can leave people behind. A major effort must be made to ensure that farming families are the first to consume the adequate food necessary for their healthy development. You know, nutrition is the base of the development. In conclusion, you can find here some useful resources here that explain the value and the role of biofortification. And to end my presentation, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the entire FAO headquarters team for the steadfast support they have provided. I would also like to pay a special tribute to the teams, to our teams in Madagascar. I'm sure they are online. They are based in Antananarivo, Amboissar, Ampani, Betiuk, Manakar, and Mananzari, whose dedicated efforts have ensured the successful implementation of these projects promoting biofortified food. Thank you.
So here you have seen a concrete example also in Madagascar, a country that is facing, severe food insecurity challenges, but also climatic challenges. So where this question of managing people and natural resources are essential. And you have seen how, a farm innovation can help generating more income, better nutrition, and my colleague Lynette will talk more about this also in your concluding remarks, so I will not comment on that. But I think what is interesting also is how you can create more value on this type of product by innovating, by thinking about a richer value chain, downstream. It's important that people grow this crop, that's important that they consume it, that's very important that post-harvest losses also have been reduced. So this is this holistic approach, The goal is not just to bring better seeds, you need to do different things. But beyond the fact that already these farmers want to consume it is a good signal. So let's make sure that more people can consume it in different shape and form when it's relevant, of course. So now we have seen this example. We are going to go online to actually talk with Piet van Asten from OFI. He's the head of the sustainable production. And OFI is a critical company when you think about how we we connect farmers to actually the whole value chain and around the world. I'm not sure if it is more than 1 million or not, but many smallholders are connected to you. I talk a lot with your colleague from OFI, so sometimes I'm just, when I say 500,000, it may be just on one commodity, so you will correct me. But more important, I think, is going to show how we can also do this smart management of the natural resources, how to make sure that one of the key assets like soil is well treated and well built. And once again, how you bring back value to do it. And here we will have an example about how data, how financial incentives, and how the connection with global value chain can actually lead to that. So, Piet, you have the floor, and I'm just thinking we can hear you.
I hope so. You can hear me, David?
Perfectly. So now you have the floor.
Fantastic. Okay, first of all, grand merci. Thank you so much for inviting me here and being able to share some of our insights. I hope that we'll be relevantly contributing to your agenda. I definitely already enjoyed the other presentations, right? So I think in particular to my colleague, I was asked to say something about how we've put regenerative agriculture at the center of much of how we engage with farmers and with customers, and how that basically helps us to propel this business smart farming, right? So I'll share some data insights and also some innovations that we have at the field level. And then we can see, of course, how that can be to use. Now, maybe some of you might, all of you probably consume our products. We are a huge player in cocoa, in coffee, in dairy, edible nuts, and spices. Yeah, we do work with more than 2 million farmers and work in more than 50 countries. So we are a big player, but we are B2B. So whereas you consumers, you might not know us because we are always behind the brands. We do source then in a lot of tropical countries, of course, as I said, right? We work with these platforms, cocoa, coffee, dairy, nuts, and spices. A lot of that is basically products that come from the tropics, and in many cases, of course, also are being consumed there, but also, of course, end up, in Americas, Europe, and other areas, right? And we also have processing facilities there as well. So as we are a company that's also listed on the stock market, we've actually been a company that is relatively young compared to our, let's say, competitors who are often 100+ years old. But it really started at the grassroots level. In fact, the company started a bit over 30 years ago in Nigeria and then grew. And in the end, now, of course, it is a big company and listed. And we have always taken pride in that grassroots level presence and in the sustainability that we can deliver, in these areas as well. So for that, we have also been then setting ourselves very ambitious targets on sustainability. I'm mentioning that here because, of course, this is, I think, also where, trying to find synergies with FAO, with the likes of the colleagues that we have just heard in the other presentations, right? For us, if we can leverage these partnerships and deliver more value on the ground for farmers, then obviously that is something that we aspire to. Not only do we have targets around, prosperous farmers and living income and thriving communities, we are also committed to SBTi and to, of course, deforestation free. We want to be net forest positive, etc. So there's lots of documentation around, these targets and how we measure that as well and how we deliver that as value to our customers. And we are trying to bring these customers into our programs in these countries where we originate, where we buy these products, right? And here is an example of what we do in coffee. So in coffee, we work in 18 countries where we work on 55 programs. And all of these programs basically are done where we try to pull in customers. And sometimes also, of course, we can collaborate also with public sector actors in aiming to try to deliver more impact, right? So for us, that collaboration, we know that, to try to support these communities, it is not always through a single actor and through a single action that you can actually try to improve these livelihoods or achieve these environmental targets. Now back to Regen Ag. I think probably yourself as well. I think I was for 20 years a scientist in the CGIAR, and now for 9 years I've been with OFI, with OLAM. And now we talk about regenerative agriculture, but in the past we talked about sustainable intensification. Oh yeah, climate smart. Now we have business smart here in this room, right? We have agroecological. It's a very French movement as well. The low carbon, etc. Is it all different? Is it the same? Well, we actually find that most of this actually all fits under the umbrella of regenerative agriculture, with regenerative agriculture having a slightly wider lens, than I would say, some of these other practices, where we look wider at healthy soils, reduced greenhouse gas emissions, water use, of course, and also biodiversity, not only at plot, but also at farm level. But all the nice words about regen ag, right? What is the most important is that in the end, whatever we do, right, it needs to be implemented by farmers, and therefore it needs to directly contribute to living income and improved resilience for these farmers, right? That is absolutely key. So in the end, what do we want to achieve with regen ag? Try to lower the cost of production for the farmers, try to improve the resilience, and at the same time, also for our own targets and for that of the customer, right? Try to reduce the environmental footprint, like the carbon footprint as well, right? For us and for our customers, because all of us, we have put big targets there as well, right? And we are sincere believers that we actually need to really move on these topics. Now, this is a very big, busy slide, so don't try to read all of it. I actually am normally against busy slides, but I've made the error of still putting it here. What I just wanted to focus on here is that livelihoods is really at the center of whatever we need to do, right? If farmers don't find that they have the ambition, the resources, or the conviction to do any of those improved practices, then obviously they will not be adopting them, right? We've also put these practices into different buckets, right? What is it that we can minimize, minimize the negative impact? Where can we restore erosion control, etc.? Are there even things that we can enhance, like whatever biochar, right? Or bringing in more tree diversity. So we basically try to see, what is it that we can do to improve those pillars. But in the end, right, it is all about that livelihood. So when we go to farmers, we don't talk regen ag, right? We don't talk about these pillars. We talk about yield improvement. When we talk about the environment, we do that in a language and with indicators which are relevant for them and for the decisions that they make. So what does that mean, for example? And again, back to coffee, because I've been taking this a bit now as an example. Obviously, we have to work on resilient varieties. Coffee always grows. The vegetative growth of this year is the reproductive growth, the cherries, the crop for next year. So you always have to prune the tree so that you get new vegetative growth, so that you have new productivity. Fertilization is key, of course, organic and inorganic, and the blending of that. IPM, pest control is key, and of course, waste management. These are all practices, and we know them. And of course, they've been even categorized in Regen Ag practices. There is SCI platform, there is WBCSD, there is Rainforest Alliance. A lot of us have worked on these practices. And we have already more or less agreed on what are the key practices that farmers can use, but also that help us to drive outcomes. So I think in the first presentation from Dimitra, we heard a lot about the digital tools and how you can use that to be guided, but also to track and claim, of course, the progress on ESG reporting. That's what we also have, right? So we have digital tools where basically we try to also help and guide farmers, but also track what is the adoption of the various practices and how does that relate, right, to the environmental footprints, carbon footprint, nitrogen use efficiency, pesticide risk, and also to key parameters that are important for the farmers, right? What are the yields and even the profits, right, that the farmers are making? So we try to track this in our supply chains, because ultimately we also want to claim what is the impact, right? And then hoping that the customers will co-invest with us in that, so that we can mobilize the resources to help and push farmers further. I apologize, I triple over my own speed of talking. Apologies for that. Anyway, when we look in coffee, of course, coffee, it's nice coffee, but coffee is very different in different areas. So when we go to Brazil, we have very high input, high output systems. When we go to Ethiopia, East Africa, parts of Aceh, even, in northern Sumatra as well, parts of Latin America, we have quite low yielding systems and, let's say, rustic agroforestry systems. What is interesting is when you look, for example, at the carbon footprint of these diverse systems, you find it's not even that different. And in fact, sometimes very high yielding systems actually have quite low footprints, although they have high footprints per hectare, they have low footprints per ton. And so in the end, what we have also then done is to try to identify what are the key priority entry points. It's nice to come with a whole manual, do a demonstration plot where we show 10 different practices, but we basically want to help farmers to focus on the 1 or 2, maximum 3 practices that will really help them to move the needle in terms of their productivity. And that might be crop rejuvenation in low input systems, and it might be the selection of low carbon and low cost fertilizer and more precise nutrient planning in high input systems. Yeah. When we then go to Guatemala, obviously we do that assessment. What are the environmental risks? Which are these practices that we should be targeting that help us cope with the risks that we have in that system? What are then also the capabilities, right? And the ambitions of these farmers? Are they very old? Do they have labor shortages? What are the issues that are at hand, right? I can come with a technical solution, but in most cases, we find that it's the social and capital constraints that really prevent farmers from adopting, right? So it's really important we understand that context. And of course, even when we want to implement programs and try to pull in the customers to co-invest, we need to understand, of course, what is our operational capacity? How does the supply chain work? Who are the actors that we are engaging with, right? How we deliver that. And that can be one-to-one, but it can also be by mobilizing local actors, like local buying agents or like local input suppliers. And we equip them to become, let's say, the messengers and the communicators of good advisory on agronomy and region ag to farmers. When we zoom then in, for example, to a place like Guatemala, and here we have a supply chain in part of the country where we work with 3,000 farmers, we try to identify what are the practices that are relevant and not being adopted yet or not yet available to farmers, and how can we help them to prioritize these ones. And when we prioritize, again, right, we always try to focus the farmer on 1 or 2 steps at the same time. I don't want to talk about fertilizer if you haven't rejuvenated the plants. If you don't have a healthy young canopy, fertilizer will be a waste. So basically, what are the steps in which you can progress, right? And so that we basically make it affordable and feasible for the farmer. So whenever we look at practices, we try to say what's the potential impact of these practices from an economic and an environmental perspective, and what is the additional effort that we have to do to achieve that. And then you see that, oh yes, biochar is very nice, but yeah, it's a bit labor intensive and it's maybe sometimes costly and not that easy to bring to scale, right? So we really sometimes end up, with very simple things, but they are really the most impactful and the fastest way to deliver impact to farmers. Then, of course, we also try to do innovative stuff. Like here, we had these pulp heaps from coffee processing stations that was stacked there, sometimes for months, sometimes for years, and fuming methane emissions. And basically, when we started to work with the static aerated compost piles, where we blow air into these heaps, and the temperature goes to 60, 70 degrees, then within 6 weeks' time, we have beautiful compost, which smells more like black tea than like a rotting pile of compost that we had before. So we really try to see how does that help us to reduce the carbon footprint, and to what extent, of course, can we then again sell these products, so that we basically also create value from this. So that we have been able to get higher value products from that. We also have biogas installations, and they again help to reduce our emissions because we use the biogas to run our drying facilities. So this is just some illustrations from how we move, let's say, from a global setup to global targets to making that locally context specific. And then I provided you here some pictures of how that looks like then in a place like Guatemala. I think that was it. I hope I didn't run over time.
No, this was perfect, Pete. So now we are going to enter in a bit more interactive segment, and I'm going to give the floor to Corina, but I just want to thank Pete for this very concrete example, also showing that my range of numbers were okay. So 2.5 million farmers in the supply chain and 500,000 benefiting from sustainability support practices. I also think it was very important when you move, to, yes, we are talking about smart farming. We talked about climate smart a few years ago, agroecology, regenerative agriculture. and so on and so on. So words are here to divide us, when numbers are here to bring us together. And when we look at outcome, when we look at indicator, we see that that's the same thing we want to achieve, okay? We want good soil, we want good landscape, we want good income. And that's where it's important to have the right metrics. And that's where at FAO also we work with all these companies to also, and government, to agree on metrics, and behind agreeing on metrics, agreeing on how we measure these things, because that's another part of the story. But maybe enough numbers, so more words. So please, Corinna, you have now the floor for the next 20 minutes for the different segment of the discussion.
Thank you very much, David. Greetings, colleagues, and thanks to the panelists for their presentations so far. Very, very interesting indeed in showing how this more interconnected approach is being taken, these efforts of designing business models that deliver on multiple goals, consider the trade-offs between the different aspects of the system as opposed to just being trying to maximize for one particular goal. So very interesting, and I'd like to ask each of you a question, and I'm going to start with you, John. You spoke about trade-offs in what you shared. You were talking about fertilizers and the impact that they can have, trade-offs that can have on farming and environmental issues. But so coming back to that particular topic, you highlighted these particular impact dimensions of the smart business model, the economic, social, and environmental angle. So in your view, what degree are the impacts along these three dimensions targeted, and where there were necessary trade-offs that had to be made? If you could just tell us a bit more about your experience in that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, so thank you for the question. Every project that we approach, we look at differently, and each project has different goals that are established by the community. So first, every time we're looking at defining a goal, we do that with the community that we work with. And not always do those maintain the same balance of trade-offs. When we look at basic principles, economic principles, is that we never ask a farmer to pay. That's a general principle at Dimitra. The farmer never pays. We earn money when the farmer earns money. When the farmer's income increases, we earn income. When they earn carbon credits, we earn income. So as we balance it, we look at each farming situation. We can take coffee, for example, as was just in the previous presentation. And when we evaluate coffee farming, it aligns quite well with agroforestry. And if you design agroforestry models where you're using specific native tree species for shade trees, you can increase the yield of the coffee, the quality of the coffee, the productivity of the farm. And if you do that smartly, you can earn some carbon credits to supplement income. One of the challenges we see as we go around the world, there's a lot of carbon credits being run in the world, a lot of carbon projects. And what I hear when I go around and talk to different governments is often the carbon projects are very pro-carbon. They have a bias towards carbon, and they do not understand agriculture. And so a carbon project developer may come into a country to generate carbon credits, but make recommendations that negatively affect the performance of the farm that is supporting the product. Every time we do that, we try to at least discuss those trade-offs. If they are planting a tree, what is the potential risk? If it's a native species of tree, what does that do to the chemistry of the soil? Does that create or enhance the product that they're growing, or does it cause a detriment to the product that they're growing? And we want to make sure that every project considers the trade-offs. Now, with the community, we have to make decisions. We don't always make the decision. They're not our projects. We deliver technology, we deliver sustainability and carbon, which are only enhancements to the existing agricultural community. So we act as an advisor, as a guide. We digitize and we show them data. We had a great conversation yesterday. I was at the hotel, we're talking to our Mexican project, and they want to plant, or they're going into the process of planting 150,000 seedlings this year. And they had specific objectives to hit from an efficiency perspective. We showed them the numbers and showed them that, yes, they're going to have a efficiency advantage. It's going to produce or take fewer resources to do it. But from a carbon perspective, there's a $187,000 difference. The community gets 2/3 of that money. When we go and we work on these projects, we always make sure 2/3 of the money goes back to the community. It goes back to the farmers. It goes back to the foundation that we're working with. And so that's still part of their decision. They have to do the work. We don't ask them to pay, but we do ask that the farmers contribute their time. And just like if they're planting a crop, or just like if they're planting a tree that's going to produce a yield, with carbon, it's the same thing. If they're doing something to the soil, if they're planting a tree, it too is producing a yield, which is that carbon credit that comes in year 1, 2, 10, 20. And so I don't know if I can completely answer everything we consider, but those are the...
Can I come back on something that you highlighted? One of the core trade-offs at the heart of agri-food systems, which is between agricultural production and environmental impact, which has been the case for decades. You're saying that it's the community who makes the decision, but we're all about making better decisions in agri-food systems to produce better outcomes that ultimately are needed for long-term food security. How would a farmer, how would you define a better decision in that instance? When there's a genuine tension between the productivity of the farm and the business goals of the farm and the environmental goal, how do you help farmers, or how do farmers help you kind of guide towards that decision?
Well, I think there's always a debate, and I am not the police of the decision. I bring a group of experts. I bring environmental experts. I bring ESG experts. I bring agronomists. I bring financial people, people in economy, and we look at all of the trade-offs, and we have an open conversation with them. We have a foundation that we work with in this Mexican project. They have biodiversity goals that they want to achieve, which again add another layer of nuance or another layer of complication to that decision. One of the great things that we find when we work in these communities is they are stewards of the land. They truly are not just there for the money. They want to have a better livelihood. And if they're seeing progress towards a better livelihood, often they can balance the decision-making process. Mathematically, is it the perfect decision? I don't work in extremes, nor do we have time to work in those extremes where we can figure out what the best calculation is. But if we take a motivated, smart group of people and we talk about what's important to them, and we get a good understanding of what's important to them, and we can guide them where we think that they're going to have a new balance to achieving that initial goal that we set. And we don't set the goal. They set the goal when we start the work. Then we can help manage that trade-off. And is it perfect? I think everybody in this room would evaluate every one of those decisions on a different basis. But if I take a community of 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, and they have different objectives, then there's nothing for me to say is wrong. We work with native tribes in Peru, the Ashaninka people. They are protectors of the forest. Some of their deities are actually forest gods. And so what they value is different than what I value. We have a common set of principles, and we can agree that we have a common set of principles. And I can help them with that common set, and my team can help them with that common set of principles. But I can't I can't change their principles, and they need to live on that land. They're making a commitment, not for next year. They're not trying to make a decision to grow a little more cacao next year. They're trying to make a decision that's going to help their children and their children's children. They don't have a medical center. They don't have a proper food and nutrition, and they want the income that comes from that to solve those problems.
Thanks very much. I mean, it's very interesting what you said about seeing progress, and when progress is seen, then that helps move a decision forward, but in certain directions. But I think what you're highlighting is some of the core tensions at the heart of agri-food systems transformation. That not easy tensions, but really important to engage with those communities and understand that voice. And it's not necessarily going to be perfect, but that's absolutely fundamental. You've made that point very clear. If I can go to Piet now online, I want to ask you a question about the challenges of introducing new business models, and particularly in the context of what we've been talking about with the desire to meet these multiple goals. And you gave some good examples of socioeconomic goals, environmental goals. But what are the challenges of adopting these business models for farming practices? What are the challenges of starting this, scaling it up? And how have you addressed some of these challenges? And where is it? We heard about the kind of the buy-in and collaboration, and really how this has to come from communities. Is that critical in your experience as well? Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Corinna. You can still hear me?
Yes, it's fine, thank you.
Okay, thanks. No, I think these are a lot of questions, so a lot of things come to my mind. But no, definitely, I think, well, first of all, of course, there is no such thing as the smallholder farmer, right? When we go to communities, even coffee smallholders or cocoa smallholders, we do a lot of farmer segmentation and try to understand, right? We usually find that 20% to 30% of the top performing farmers deliver 70 to 80% of the volume, and 50% of the bottom, let's say, part of the population doesn't even deliver 10 to 15% of the volume. So there are a lot of smallholder farmers that have land, and they have that land because they don't want to sell the piece of land. It's their asset. It's an insurance, right, to have it. And they don't invest a lot of time and effort into it, but the few days per year that they go and pick some cocoa or pick some coffee, actually it's quite good returns to labor investment, right? So when I go there and I start jumping up and down, you see, when you cut the tree like this and then you put here manure and then you do the composting, and they're like, oh, composting manure. My friend, I don't have time for that. By the way, I'm a bit old. My son has already went to the city. I'm okay. If I have a problem, I will call him, etc. Right? So there is quite a lot of farmers, of course, that are just by default quite difficult, to change. And what we then often do is, oh yeah, let's do a demonstration plot, right? I heard the Farmer Field School. I like the Farmer Field Scope idea. I don't like necessarily always that we go to a single demonstration plot, rather than you pruning 500 cocoa trees in one place and showing what the impact is. I'd rather go and do 5 trees in 100 farms and show them all what it does. And they see for themselves, right? And they learn. And then maybe in 1 year, maybe only 20 or 30 of them say, this is good. Now I'll do it myself, right? Because they see what is the benefit. And this is how we try to see, okay, how can we bring farmers to this innovation trajectory? How can they learn themselves by seeing, not on another plot, but on their own plot, right? And then how do we basically incentivize and bring along particularly the entrepreneurial farmers, but give everybody the opportunity, right, to progress. But knowing as well, many will not necessarily do that because their objective with that farming is not necessarily maximizing, right? So I think that is one thing, is that how do we package and engage with farmers and finding, do more of this learning on all the farms rather than, oh, well, here is the demo plot. I mean, digital apps are great when people are using it, right? But again, that, you'll find it's quite selective in who will be using that. It might not be everybody, which is also okay. So that is one thing, think about that it's not often necessarily a technical issue. It is more about how to convey, how to communicate and engage. I think secondly is that we have done a lot of things in the past that have killed entrepreneurship, particularly when we do indeed, again, a demonstration plot or a free gift of a service. So I was 2 months ago in the north of Ivory Coast. It's the biggest cashew producer in the world. And there the farmers were saying, now you, OFI, you have to come and prune our trees. And we're like, yeah, obviously, right? If you prune cashew trees, you will double, triple the productivity. This is going to be amazing. And he said, yeah, how do you know? He said, no, but somebody from Anader came, and in his farm there, they did it for free. So now I'm also waiting for free. And you're like, no, but you can see that it is giving you very quick returns to investment, right? When we see in cocoa, you prune a cocoa tree, 1 year later, you'll have a 30% jump in yield, right? Across the board, across West Africa, we've done many trials. So we know it. But many farmers basically feel that they are discouraged because everybody's waiting for that free service, right? So I think we've done a lot of good intention work in the past with, free service delivery, but I do think it's caused a lot of inertia. So what we try to do, of course, and that is also where we have to not only, of course, work with private sector partners, but also with public sector partners. Let's make sure that we align, because some of the actions can really kill demand and therefore kill the progress of this smart farming, right? And then I think, of course, for us, what is very important is pull in the customers. We want to bring the customers also to the field, show them how it looks like, meet the farmers, see the product, and see that this is real, right? And that will give us that connectivity and that co-investment from that. And that co-investment, right, that can help in the beginning, provide some tools, run some trials in farmers' fields themselves, help, build the digital tools or other ways to engage. And the last thing I want to say is that, when it comes to private sector, we try to also work a lot with the local actors, right? Local LBAs, input suppliers. When you go to Vietnam, right, people say, oh, people have been using too much fertilizer and now the soils are acidified. We get nematodes, it's bad for the environment. And it's true, there are a lot of challenges. But when you go to farmers, what do they buy? Oh, NPK. NPK what? Oh, I buy 20-10-20. I buy 17-17-17. Oh, I buy 12-8-15. They all have different codes, they have different products. They don't necessarily even know exactly, right, what to apply and which ones are acidifying and which ones are less acidifying, or even how to correct the soil. What we try to do is work with the input suppliers and tell them, hey, when farmers come to you, here is a pH test kit, and they can bring the soil, and you can tell them, before you apply the fertilizer, make sure you do the lime. And when you have this problem of a nutrient deficiency, we have posters with nutrient deficiencies. Look, which is the nutrient deficiency that you have in your location? And basis that, you identify what is the product that you need the most. It's better economics, it's lower carbon footprint, and definitely will help the farmer, right, to move forward in a much more efficient way. So mobilizing local private sector actors, whether that's pruning and service delivery, whether that's fertilizer or other things. If you go to many parts of the tropics, I go to the pharmacy, I say, I have a runny tummy, what is the problem? Then they will tell me, oh, use this, and this is how you use it. This is also how we should do it for, let's say, input supply shops, right?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I better bring you to a close there. Thanks very much for sharing some of these details. I mean, it's interesting. I'd like to talk more, but I need to go on to the final question for lack of time. But very interesting tensions, I think, that are coming out from what is from the outside, what is from the inside. And about who has what knowledge and how these deeper dynamics are playing into the to what you're sharing with us. So thanks very much for that. I want to turn to you, Holly, now, and ask you a question, a bit picking up on this about what makes collaboration succeed. Introducing new business models, as we've heard from the examples shared today, imply these collaborations, as Pierre was just talking about, between the public sector and the private sector, as well as international organisations such as yourself, such as us. And can you say a bit more about what makes this collaboration succeed or fail to deliver impact? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, overall, you can say that collaboration succeeds when each sector plays its proper role. At first, the government takes real ownership. It's very important. And private sector participation is both incentivized and supported to ensure social positive outcomes. These collaborations can fail when this ownership, different actors' engagement, or clarity or role is missing. Indeed, such an initiative requires collaboration among different sectors. For FAO, as an organization that manages and shares knowledge, at first we have an important role to play in sharing experiences and expertise through specific projects. But we know project is limited limited in time and limited in scope. But during the implementation of a project, like we could see here for the biofortification, we strengthen the capacity of the national authorities, the implemented NGO, the private sector. We organized roundtables to share best practices. But for this to be adopted, the government must take ownership for it. There must be clear policies and strategies so that the different actions are incorporated into the government's priorities. Even after the end of the project, which are too short for long-term change. It's not possible to have change after a 2 years project. In Madagascar, for example, we have developed a roadmap for sustainable food system and the national strategy for the development of nutrition-sensitive agricultural value chains. That means these two official documents emphasize the need to produce food that improves nutrition. Not only nutrition, but the economy at all levels. But this will not happen without the involvement of the private sector. Why? Because the private sector means profit. It's clear. Because the industry provides livelihoods for employees and must generate profit. Therefore, to involve them in such initiatives, they must be convinced of a product's added value and how they can benefit from it. That's why a social marketing campaign could be established jointly by the national government and the supporting organization like FAO. It's not for advertising, but to raise awareness about the product's nutritional benefits. That will help the consumers to buy the new products and for industry to collaborate with national counterpart and to work on these new products. I'd like to share with you the example of Moringa oleifera. You know, it's a plant naturally rich in essential nutrients. And for years, it has been considered like a food for poor people. People eat moringa when they have nothing to eat. But after the different awareness campaigns, training sessions led by FAO, now the government embraced it in official documents. They understand that it's important for nutrition. Now the private sector collaborated with us to use Moringa oleifera in some flour, mixed flour. It can be used in conjunction with biofortified foods and to create a nutrition-sensitive business model. Therefore, I think to ensure the sustainability of such an initiative, every stakeholder must be aware of their role. Even the government, through its sovereign authority, it will be able to monitor every link in the chain from production to consumption. The role of the government is very important. The business model will leave no one behind, from the pricing of raw materials and to the price of food and production. For producers organize themselves, for example, into cooperatives like this, they can coordinate on the prices of their products. And they can work easily with the private sector. I think that's all from me.
Thank you very much, Holly, and made very clear point there about clarity of roles and responsibilities, but also really emerged about who benefits and how they benefit as an incentive for engagement and sustainability, longer-term sustainability of the model. David, I think we have time for a couple of questions, or no?
I think we don't really have time for a couple of questions. Sorry to be the hardliner here, but we still want to hear from Lynette, and we cannot go too far in the coffee break because people will have also to go to the last session. So, but I think all the speakers will be around, so you can catch up with them. So I will, if you don't mind.
If you don't mind, no, it's fine.
I have the gavel.
So we are going to find a middle ground in the person of Lynette. So Lynette, you can be here, you can go on the podium as you want.
I think I'll stay here, if that's all right. I do hope everybody will find time to find the speaker and ask their questions afterwards, because it was a very rich discussion, and it's going to be impossible to do justice to that in a few final remarks. But let me see what I can do. So first of all, thank you very much to the moderator and speakers and all of the participants for that rich discussion, and for those who organized the session and got the different groups together from around the house. It's actually a little bit unusual to have 3 directors on a panel supporting a session, so well done. Today's session really did help us define what it takes to make business models smart. And clearly, it is not only about the technology that they bring. As highlighted by this discussion, success depends on how innovative solutions are embedded into viable business models, support services, incentives, supported by government policies and frameworks, and the partnerships that can de-risk investments while creating value. We heard from David that adoption and scaling requires business models that make smart farming bankable across economic, social, and environmental dimensions. And health sits within that, and nutrition clearly sit within that social. We'll come back to that in a moment. John Trask from Dimitra explained how digital platforms, improved information, market access, carbon incentives and innovation, financing mechanisms can help adopt new technologies alongside traditional practices, which was a really nice way to bring those together while creating economic opportunities and new revenue streams for farmers. You highlighted trade-offs across production, economic, and environment, and I'm going to add, again, the nutrition dimension, and come back to that in a moment. And that was actually also highlighted by Holly Robalina through the FAO Madagascar biofortification experience, reminding us that smart solutions must work from soil to plate, creating value for farmers while considering social impacts as an opportunity for business development, and that investing in nutrition isn't only about what's on the plate, it is in itself an economic investment, given the return to society, to households, to individuals when they are well nourished. Lastly, Piet van Asten shared how regenerative agricultural principles at OFI are being operationalized into scalable business models that deliver operationalized into scalable business models that deliver environmental benefits while maintaining both productivity and livelihoods, and doing this in a manner that is tailored to the unique contextual realities where they are working. Together, the speakers highlighted that cutting-edge innovations that are reshaping agriculture, such as artificial intelligence, digital agriculture, robotics, and how these translate into businesses for today and tomorrow. But they also highlighted the questions of who benefits and how to maximize those benefits in the contexts where they're working. Smart business models must be judged not only by their technologies they deploy, but also by the outcomes that they create. The example of biofortification offers an important bridge between smart farming solutions and their impacts, showing that nutrition is not separate from these innovations. Nutrition depends on healthy diets, and this is what ultimately food production is bringing us alongside those livelihoods and other outcomes. It can be an integral value-added outcome of innovation when technologies, value chains, and business models are intentionally designed to improve diets while strengthening livelihoods and generating profit. Additional availability of nutritious foods does not always translate into healthy diets. Increased income does not necessarily translate into healthy diets. This needs to be an intentional component of that, not the only one. It will never work if it's the only intentional component, but it needs to be an integral part of that. So realizing FAO's mission requires, as was already discussed, not only the more production, but better production, better nutrition, better environment, and a better life for all. And enabling healthy diets, a part of that is really a fundamental part of that, along with the economic and the environmental considerations. Achieving this requires strong collaboration across actors, from farmers, businesses, researchers, investments, governments, development partners, and consumers and communities. FAO has a key role to play in helping build these connections and creating synergies between the economic, social, and environmental dimensions of innovations. So as a takeaway, from today is clear that smart business models are not necessarily those that bring the most advanced technology, but those that successfully combine innovation, profitability, environmental sustainability, social inclusion, considering the role of nutritious foods in healthy diets, and considering those how they can themselves support the economic and improve the economic livelihood and other benefits. So if we can achieve this balance, we can scale innovation in businesses while ensuring that the benefits reach those who need them and result in truly advanced agri-food systems, leaving no one behind. Thank you.
Thanks, Tinek. Thanks, everyone, for having attended this session. Once again, I reiterate the invitation to come to our speakers in the coming minutes or later today or tomorrow. I thank Corina and Lynette to have been in this high-level panel, as has been reminded. But I also want to thank all the people that have organized this session, including with the video, with the online. I mean, that's very nice, but sometimes technology can betray us. And once again, you have seen examples from Madagascar, from Kenya, from Peru, from Mexico, from Guatemala, from a few other countries that I'm forgetting now. But you see how these things are moving. And so the type of solution we are talking about are not just a creation of mind, but a reality of today. So let's make this change happen.